what is the importance of having that cash in the bank and pushing out those payments and collecting it soon? Like, what's the benefit to having that money sitting in the bank?
You have to plan for the worst case. Well, not necessarily worst case scenario, but just plan for different scenarios. During COVID, that was my Nebraska business I had. The only reason why that saved me was me trying to have the extra cash in reserves. I got to the point where we only had a couple hundred left in the bank account. Otherwise, I would have had to go bankrupt. Hey everybody, welcome back to the FIP Printing Pros podcast. I'm your host, Josh Steinison. As always, with me, I got my co-host, Chris Lockwood.
What's up, folks?
And today we'll be talking about the things I wish I would have known before I got into business with my print shop. Again, along the way in the journey, there's a lot of things that I have learned that I think I would have done differently, or at least set myself up in the beginning had I known what I know now.
So before we get into that, first of all, I love the setup. I love these chairs are comfortable.
Yeah.
And I can't swivel them around either.
Yeah, that's more my problem.
So before we get into, what you wish you had done a little different, remind everybody why you left the police force and went into business in general in the first place.
Yeah. So I talked about this in some previous podcasts, but obviously just a kind of a quick rundown, is I was in the military for 8 years, and then right after that, I joined the police force for 5 years in my local city that I lived in. And at that time, there's just a lot going on within policing and the world. And I had some people show up. I had somebody show up at my house 4 o'clock in the morning, yelling, screaming outside my house, F the police, all the things. And then had my wife at the time, her life was threatened by somebody I had arrested. And then on the biggest thing though for me, because a lot of that's it is what it is, not that I want my family to have to deal with that side of things. Mm-hmm. I wanted it to just listen, you want to yell at me, threaten me, do whatever, that is what it is. But once it came into my family, that was, I took that a little differently.
And not a lot of threats in the print business, though.
No, and if there is, it's very empty threats.
Yeah.
But as far as the biggest deciding factor for me was, unfortunately, it became very political, where even if police officers were doing the right thing, and by the way, I'm not saying there's a lot of things where police officers did the wrong thing, they deserve what punishment they get and all that stuff.
There's bad people in every
100%, yes. And I'm actually the first to call out the bad ones because I've been through that and I know what's right and actually wrong, where a lot of people because anytime you have to get physical with anybody in any process as a police officer, it doesn't look pretty. And so when it doesn't look pretty, sometimes people just immediately assume it's wrong.
Yeah. Well, especially when there's selective editing on what is shown.
Or you don't know the full context, what happened beforehand, what they've already tried to do, or what was the phone call initially that the person called 911 saying, everything that take that into, into account. But with them, they were getting very political with it and causing basically people just getting thrown under the bus. And, lawsuits, all the things, and they weren't backing their people. And I didn't want to have to deal with that. So between that and also the fact that my family is now getting affected, but also I had always envisioned myself having my own business at one point. I just thought it was like when I was going to be 40 or 50 years old.
Yeah.
Not in my early 30s. So that's kind of where I kind of got started with everything.
Yeah. So you've been a business owner now for how many years? You've had FIP for almost 5.
This is start of 8.
Okay, so start of 8 years. So going back to into the beginning, you made all the mistakes. We've gone through all the mistakes that you made, but let's talk about now that you've got almost a decade of experience, what's the number one thing you wish you would have understood from the beginning and done differently?
I would say, I don't know if it's necessarily anything I could have necessarily done differently, but maybe I would have prepared a little better. Is just how important having the cash flow in the business, which I feel like I did good enough job, obviously, because I'm still in business. But I think I made it way harder on myself because I didn't give, whether that's like a bigger cushion of cash flow, or, you know, just being better and harsher on, not harsher, but like more stricter with maybe payment terms and when people pay me and all that, and things like that.
So let's back up. Let's explain to people, because I mean, I'm sure there's business owners out there, you know, solopreneurs and stuff like that have their own thing, and they're like, I keep hearing this term cash flow and you know, monitoring your cash flow, but what does that actually mean? So in a practical standpoint, kind of explain what you're talking about with cash flow, with money coming in, money going out. Like what does all that entail?
Yeah. So obviously you have, you know, for us right now, like in the print shop, initially when I was in Nebraska, I didn't have the actual printed material like paper and stuff. I just had promo and apparel. That was a little easier to handle because for the most part, I didn't have to hold stock at the time. I just had to, upon order in the products, because it was all outsourced, you know. And then the shirts, when we did embroidery, I mean, we get those next day. And so that wasn't a big deal. We could wait one day to get the shirts in. So that one was a little easier to kind of handle cash flow, because it's not like I had to have a bunch of stock in-house of things. Now, obviously, with the embroidery that we did in-house at the time, we had to have like thread and some other different things that you kind of have to have that goes with that. But that is very cheap compared to like now, the operation we have with printing. We have to have, you know, at least about $10,000 to $20,000 worth of different stock, just in inventory on just the paper stock alone, not even counting many other things that we need within the business. But because everything you have, you know, we have a larger inventory when it comes to that, like every different type of stock kind. Envelopes, there's 5 different type of envelopes, and you need to have at least, you know, 10 to 20,000 of each envelopes on hand, you know, because if somebody orders 10,000, you need to have it ready to go and print, because sometimes I've learned with, especially in the past, sometimes they're out and it takes sometimes a week to get them in.
So your supplier would be out.
Yeah, because it takes them a week sometimes to get certain things in sometimes. So we have to kind of always plan ahead, like just in case. And so when somebody places order, now basically we use that, and then we're already placing the order for the next replacement. And
you've already paid for that, so you have money tied up in that before anybody's ever ordered a product, and so you're basing it on past experience of what people have ordered, but you're also taking a big risk to saying, I'm going to have all this product sitting here that I have money tied up in, and it's not like the supplier is going to wait for you to sell it to get paid, right? No. So when we're talking cash flow, your money's tied up in that, and now you're waiting for someone to place the order, right? Okay.
And then on top of that, you have your general monthly rents, utilities, payrolls, and anything else, gas money for deliveries, all the other things that are involved in a business that, you know, are constantly coming through, whether you sell or not.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to always be mindful of all that, that you got to keep a track of too, to make sure you have enough in the account to take care of it.
And where does the money come from in the account?
From payments from the customers.
For payments from the customers. So I want to get to that point, because you made the comment earlier about your payment terms and all that. So what did you establish initially with your customers for their payment options, and what are you doing now that's a little different?
Yeah, so the hard part was because the previous owner had, you know, they didn't have a business loan. They didn't have a real estate loan. All that's paid off, like, because they've had it for so many years. So they didn't have those extra expenses like I do. And for, you know, a 10,000 square foot warehouse, that's costly. For that extra stuff, plus the business loan we had to get to purchase the company. So with that, as far as, I'm sorry, remind me what you asked me.
So I'm asking about the terms for the payments you had set up with
yes, correct.
your customers.
So with that, they didn't have to necessarily worry about Exactly, like if somebody took 90 days or more to pay a payment, wasn't as big of a deal to them because they didn't have as much cash flow that they was having to go out because they didn't have the loans like I do. So for somebody like me, when I came in, I couldn't, the 90-day payments that everybody were holding off on, and sometimes way beyond that, were really hurting me. So when I came in, I really tried to nip a lot of that in the bud, but you also have to be careful with that because they've been customers for so long. They do reorder. They always pay. It's just always delayed. So you have to be careful, like not to push them away because you want to keep them as customers, but you want them to start to try to more come around to what you would like the payment terms to be. So for us, it's net 30. You know, that's what we prefer. Now we have shifted to trying with new customers. And we do with the new customers because you can kind of train them a little bit how you want it to be done, where it's paid up front or at the very least pay upon pickup or shipping.
Right.
So that's more so we're trying to get to there. Also, the other thing for our net 30 people, what we were also doing was we weren't sending the invoice out to start the net 30 terms until when it's delivered or shipped. Which a lot of times within a week or two is our production time, you know, so they weren't, technically we'd be an extra week or two behind the 30 days, and then it'd be more closer to 45 days. So we now are trying to invoice upon order. So then the net 30 term starts upon order. So little things we're trying to change so that helps with the cash flow, and it has gotten better. The other thing we're doing too is we have like a new system that automatically sends reminders to pay their bills. So once it hits 30 days, it's a once a week reminder. Then after 45 days, then it goes every day they get a reminder.
Yeah. Now, so that's the money coming in. That's you want to collect that money as soon as possible so that you have a bigger cash reserve. Now, these businesses are obviously trying to stretch that out as long as they can.
Yep.
Now, for you, money going out, what do you do to try and control how much you have going out?
So I do try to do what they do with me and extend my terms as much as possible. And what I have done is I have credit cards that I utilize. I especially try to make sure to utilize the credit cards with the people that allow credit card payments without extra fees, which is a lot of our customer or our vendors. But what I do is if I get net 30 terms, which almost all of them I have net 30 terms with, and then at the end, I basically push it to the end of the net 30 term, and then I use my credit card, which then I don't have to pay for net 30 days before interest kicks in. So really what I do is I extend my cash flow ultimately 60 days on my vendors. So that way, hopefully, by the time it takes me to pay that vendor, I've already received my payment from the customer. That's my goal.
Yeah. And the last question on this, what is the importance of having that cash in the bank and pushing out those payments and collecting it soon? Like, what's the benefit to having that money sitting in the bank?
So you have to plan for the worst case. Well, not necessarily worst case scenario, but just plan for different scenarios. Because obviously during COVID, that was my Nebraska business I had. The only reason why that saved me was me trying to have the extra cash in reserves. I got to the point where we only had a couple hundred left in the bank account. Otherwise, I would have had to go bankrupt. And thankfully, I turned it around and really hit it grind before then. And let's even say now with the business I have here in Florida, I've got that down pretty low as well during slow times. So you have to kind of prepare for the slow times, plus all my issues I've talked about before with inflation issues. So I was paying more out during that time too. So just preparing for things that you don't necessarily expect to happen. You basically want to plan for the unexpected.
Yeah.
And so that if the unexpected happens, and more than likely it will in business, that you can sustain and be able to handle that.
If you want to leverage different print and promotional products for your company but don't know how to go about doing it, click the link below and let's schedule a free strategy session with me, and I'd love to help you guys out. Look forward to talking with you.
If you're new in business, or even if you've been in business for a while and it's like, this has to be one of the biggest stressors next to maybe like getting customers, but to manage that. So this sounds like something that you need to have your eyes on practically every single day.
Yep.
And have systems in place for when you collect, when you pay, because not only do you want to stretch that cash out, but you also don't want to get a reputation of being late or missing payments or something like that. So it sounds like for those that are new in business, you're solopreneurs, I would definitely take the time to learn what you need in your business, figure out what you need in reserve for those contingencies like you were talking about. Yep. And then you got to manage that. You gotta constantly watch that. So yeah, cash flow is definitely an important one. So what's the next thing that comes to mind that you wish you would have known more about or done more in the early days?
I mean, I feel like I had a good handle on this, but I think to the level of the knowledge of how important it is, I think is making sure you create that solid relationship with your customers. And honestly, not even customers, your vendors, your employees, all the above. You need to have those good, solid relationships because let's just say we were just talking about cash flow. When I was really struggling end of last year, beginning of this year, with cash flow issues because of the inflation issues I was dealing with before our refinance, I was able to contact some of our big customers that had large amounts they'd ordered with us, but normally pay slower. And I allow it because they're big customers. But I was able to call them and say, hey, could you help me out? Could you pay ahead on this one? You got like $15,000 that you owe me. And that would really help me out a lot now.
Let me get some of that.
Yeah. And all of them, everybody I called because I had established a very good relationship with them. And we always take good care of them. They were willing to pay ahead of time than normal. And a lot of those companies especially don't like to pay that early because they're just like me, trying to extend their cash flow as much as they possibly can. But having that relationship to be able to call them and ask for that type of help when I need it, that's the type of relationship you want to have. Then on the vendor side, having that relationship with them as well is for different reasons. One, if like I need a rush through, most of these companies on the wholesale side, especially promo, they don't do any extra movements. It's their production time is their production time. You don't get bumped. Nobody gets bumped. It's just you jump in line. But you get that relationship established. Hey, this is a good customer of mine. I really need help. Can you help me out? I spend XYZ with you. It'd be really great if you can really help me here to keep this customer happy. And a lot of times that'll work for my vendors I work with a lot. Or having that good relationship with them, let's say for like my vendors that I get the papers stuff with, like between me and my other guy that handles that side of things, having that relationship with them, we've been able to really negotiate with them. Same with UPS, like my UPS shipping costs a lot lower than normal because I've been able to negotiate with them. I've developed a relationship with the rep and building that trust there. So that's that kind of the side of it where it matters on the employee side, not employee side, the vendor side. Then on the employee side, developing a relationship with them to where you can ask anything of them that is needed for the business. Where it may not fall under their job title technically, but because you're needing the help over in this area and they're willing to come over there and do that for the success of the company, and also because you've worked a good relationship with them and they trust you and they want to help you out too.
Yeah, that's something I've learned over the last couple of months that I've been with the home healthcare industry is not only are all the things you said so important, but the world is actually a lot smaller than you think.
Yeah.
And if you develop a certain reputation, be it good or bad, it will follow you.
Oh yes.
And if you have a bad reputation with this group over here, whether it's customer, vendor, whatever, and they're in a situation where they talk to one of your other customers, well, they're going to be like, oh yeah, this person's unreliable, or they're this or they're that, or they'll say, hey, we're looking for a new print guy. Who do y'all use? Well, we use this guy. He's like, yeah, I've heard that. So that relationship with that one person or that one vendor or whatever can spiderweb out to all the other people. And you've got to be mindful of that.
Yep.
When you do that. And something else that comes along with it, and it's not done overnight. You're not going to form these relationships overnight. You're not going to do it at one luncheon. It's consistency.
Yep.
It's constantly showing up. And what I've learned is one of the most important things is the first several times when you're establishing that, you don't ask for anything.
Yep.
Unless it's absolutely necessary. And when you do it, you go in there, what I think works the best is you go in there with a giant spoonful of humility.
Oh, yeah.
And let that person be your savior.
Yep.
And so if it's your first time approaching a new vendor or something like that, listen, I'm in a huge bind. I got myself into this and I need some help getting out of it, and I hope you're the person that can save me.
Yep.
And right there, like I've already put them in a position to have to be a hero, and everybody wants to be a hero.
Yep.
But I'm not just going in there saying, oh, I need this, or can you do this for me? It's using that, like I said, a giant bit of humility. But yeah, building those relationships takes a lot of time. So
yeah, for sure.
Now I know something that's, we all fall victim to the shiny pennies. We all fall victim to wanting to say yes. We all fall victim to having a hard time saying no.
Yep.
Did you ever struggle with, or have you ever found yourself saying yes, or doing too much and thinking maybe I shouldn't have done that after it was too late? How have you handled that throughout these last 8 years?
When I first came into the business, I had to shut down some things that were said yes to that I didn't think should have been said yes to. Like, for instance, we had an order that was a great order. It was a monthly, every single month order. I want to say it was like 50,000 pieces every single month. So it was great on the revenue side. But then when you dissect it and look at it, we were breaking even on the profit side. So when I came into the business, I started like evaluating some of our bigger projects that we do over and over again like that. And that one I found out we were, I think, when you're talking 50,000 pieces, and this was like a print it, fold it, and stuff it, or I don't remember all the process, but it was about a 2 to 3 day process. And for people to be tied up for that long, we should make a decent amount of money. And we were only making, I think, a couple $100 at the end for profit, and it wasn't gonna.
And how many other jobs could you have done in that time to make way more than that?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
So was that because of pricing, or was that just?
So when I asked why they were doing it, they basically said we were trying to keep the people busy. This was during COVID times when I came in. This was during COVID times when that came in. But they were doing it way before COVID. So, I mean, I don't know if it was just because of COVID, but it kept the machines running. But I told them, I was like, well, we aren't going to do things just to keep people busy. Because also, you got to think, that's wear and tear on that machine that's happening. And plus the people that are having to order, the time it takes to order the paper, order the ink, do all the things for that particular job, and the people that communicating with the customer on that job. There's a lot of things happening in that job that aren't even accounted for technically in that a couple $100 that we profited, that technically, if you really broke it down, probably be nothing and losing money.
Or you're losing money. Well, you're losing money because you could have been making more doing something else.
Correct. Yeah. So I evaluated that, and I approached the customer with a new price of what it should be, and had to be honest with them and tell them basically that this is the situation, and I'm sorry, I don't want to be the bad guy or anything. I said, but I can't do this for free. And they understood totally. They're business owners. But eventually they had to go somewhere else to where they could get it cheaper, which they were going directly to the newspaper because these were inserts for the newspaper. And so they could run it way cheaper than what we could do. So, but again, like I had told them, because they were concerned taking that away revenue wise, is like, listen, I don't care about revenue. I care about profit margins. That ultimately, at the end of the day, what is the net income showing? I don't care about what our revenue could look nice and shiny.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if it's a $50,000 job, but you're only making $200,
yeah,
like it's not worth it.
No, not at all. And I told them, I said, I'm not worried about making you guys just be busy. Worst case scenario, I will find things for you guys that you can do around the shop or something that can be more productive for the future or whatever.
Yeah.
I said, plus, we got to clear room for this if we're going to grow and do all these different things that I have imagined and envisioned for the company to where you're going to be busy. So I don't want you doing busy work and can't do the things when we do get busy, that are actually going to make us money.
Yeah.
So that was my mindset with there.
So have you ever found yourself taking on more than what you should? You got your core, getting away from your core focus. Have you ever found yourself doing that?
Me personally?
Yeah. Well, just as a company, like I said, you got the shiny objects.
Oh.
And then, this thing looks cool. And then you kind of shift focus and shift focus or whatever.
No, I think we stay pretty good on task for what we should be doing. I'm pretty good about saying no. I have some people that give me ideas of like, oh, we should try to do this, we should do that, and I'm quickly like, no, that doesn't fit, that doesn't smart. And I feel bad saying no to them because thank you for thinking of ideas, but it just doesn't make sense for what we're trying to do for the future. So I would say I'm pretty good at quickly saying yes or no to what I think is good for the company. That's something I feel like is a thing I'm good at. But as far as myself, we've talked about that before. I'm bad about taking on too much myself. But I feel like as a business, I feel like we do good at trying to like not do what we shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, I know. I've seen it in other businesses that you're always chasing that next flashy thing instead of just being good at the one thing you're good at or the two things that you're good at. So I would caution other business owners out there.
Yes.
If you start a lawn care business, get really, really good at that. Then shift to cleaning driveways or cleaning gutters or whatever. Focus on what your core mission is, and before you try and build out. So, what else comes to mind of things you wish you knew when you first started?
The other thing I would say is more so how more difficult it was to kind of handle like people. And not just the customers. More so, I'm saying like our employees. Like, I as a police officer, I dealt with the public. So like somebody coming in upset about something, I can handle that. And actually, we'll be doing a podcast kind of discussing about some different customer complaints and things like that. But as far as like just different personalities that don't mesh well or disagreements. Just different things. That's the thing I don't enjoy about being a business owner is dealing with the personal conflicts within a company. Because I went from my Nebraska company, where it was me and my business partner and one employee. I don't think we really had. I don't think we ever had an argument because it just wasn't an issue with that small. But once you come into a company where there's 12 of us, now you're adding a lot more different personalities. Then also, we have a different production flow. It was very simple at the Nebraska companies. Salesman, I was the salesman, and then the person that did the orders, then Kayla, she did the production of the embroidery. Very simple. Everybody had their own lane. Now we have multiple people in different lanes, like multiple production, multiple this, multiple that. So then now there's more people within certain departments.
There's also a lot more overlap and
correct.
And, back and forth with communication and all that too. So
correct. Yeah. So now you have multiple people in each department. Then you also have a lot more handled in-house here. So there's a lot more got to have better communication, and that a lot of times that's the issue, is the lack of communication, or the communication, they didn't like the communication that they had with the other person, whatever. So I would say that's one thing that I would say that I didn't fully prepare myself for, is how much time and effort that takes to really build a solid team, and kind of personality wise, like how to handle all those and build a culture.
Tell me a little bit about how you went about doing that, Chick, because you took over and most of the employees are still there. So how did you turn that to what you wanted the culture to be?
Well, ultimately, like, go back to, we were talking about relationships. Ultimately, it was just building relationships with them, hearing them out, understanding what the issue is, trying to understand where I can meet the middle ground to make them okay with this. Sometimes it was also just being very straightforward. No, this is not going to be accepted here. And usually that's with attitudes. Like, I don't allow attitudes in the business. There's just no place for it. You can disagree and we can have conversations about it, things like that, but we are not going to treat anybody wrong with an attitude, a tone, or anything like that. Like, we're adults, we can handle that. So sometimes it's just being straightforward, and I've had a lot of hard conversations with that for different people in the business, but also understanding they are human. And so some of the emotions are because they're overwhelmed in the moment, because it's really busy, whatever it is, and trying to just also realize they're humans and be human with them and relate to them and make them feel heard. A lot of times that's all they want, is just to be heard, when they're, expressing their different feelings. And if you just do that, and then I think, I can't speak fully because they would have to tell you what worked for them, but that's just how I feel, how I handled it, and I think that's what worked.
Yeah. Well, I could tell you, I've taken over organizations, 20 years of leadership in the Army, 20 plus years of leadership in the Army, and a couple of things that I figured out along the way, and I did not do it right the whole time, that's for sure, but a couple of things I figured out is, number one, I don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
There are people who either have better technical experience or understanding of certain things that I don't have. Mm-hmm. And there are people, like you said earlier, that do have good ideas, and I think it's important to foster that. But what I have found that really helps set the tone and culture within an organization is, number one, be the example. Mm-hmm. If you want an organization that's calm, then you have to be calm.
Yeah.
If you want one that's combative, I don't mean combative like we fight, but there are sometimes it works to where we have that back and forth, and at some point it's like, okay, that's it. Here's the decision, but you have to establish that. And number two, establishing norms and establishing, the core values, the left and right limits, these are the things that I expect, establishing your expectations, and then holding people accountable to those.
Yep.
Is super important. And it's all the way from, if you're supposed to be at work at this time or leave at this time, or you're supposed to do these particular things, or you're supposed to dress a particular way, whatever works in your organization, you have to establish that, be clear about it. And for those that don't fall in line, like you said, then if they're not a fit, they're just not a fit.
Yeah.
But the people that like their job, want to keep their job, they like what they're doing, they will adjust to whatever the processes you put in place. So,
yep, 100%.
For sure.
Yep.
So what else? We're close to the end on this episode. What else comes to mind that you wish in the beginning you had known more when you came into the print world?
I think just especially in our industry, in the print industry, is just the ebbs and flows of like losing customers, gaining customers, plus just the name of the game, we're in sales. And sometimes that means good months, sometimes bad months. But if you want to stay consistent with the good months, is you need solid continuance of marketing. That's keeping your face out there, whatever that is, whatever the marketing style it is, there's so many ways to different market. You can go to networking events, you can go digital marketing, you can go on Facebook social medias, you can go to and hand out flyers to businesses, you can go face-to-face sale, you know, all that. There's so many different ways to market. But you got to make sure you're doing it and consistently over the time. Doing this podcast, I mean, it's all marketing in a way. And so just the realization of like, I wished I would have made more of a focus of it in the beginning, where in the beginning I just relied on my powering through with just straight sales, like going out and just knocking on doors. There's way more to it than just that.
Well, it comes back to those relationships you were talking about earlier, you know.
Yep, exactly.
One thing that you know, when we talk about market, we talk about kind of stuff, something that's so powerful. And this is the combination of the marketing and the building relationships, is when you can learn something about someone through conversation, and then you go back and you ask that question. You know, for example, I have this one woman at one of the facilities I go to, and she's 40 years old, and she's about to be a grandma for the second time. And just when I go in there and I ask, how's your daughter's pregnancy going? When's that baby coming?
Yep.
You know, just that shows that you care about that person. But if you're not genuine, then it's going to come off as not being genuine.
Yep.
Or if you're, you know, when we talk about marketing, if you're not consistent, if you change your logo every other day, you change your colors, you change
Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, exactly. You know, when you do that, it doesn't stick in your mind. And I like what you said. I want to say you said it on an earlier podcast, or maybe it was a conversation we were having, that, you know, you will most of the time be able to tell when your sales drastically dip if you go back and look 30, 60, 90 days, what was your marketing at that time prior to?
Yep.
And you'll probably find that there was a dip. I wasn't handing out business cards. I wasn't going to my marketing events. I took, you know, a month off for vacation, and now 2 months later, my sales are down. And, you know, so you have to take that into account, because even when there are slow times, there's still people spending money. There's still businesses making money. So you have to be consistent
100%.
with that.
Yeah. Yep. 1,000%. I think that kind of, I mean, we could go on with things I've learned and what I would have maybe prepared for better, but I think that's kind of a good for this episode.
Yeah, that was, let's do a recap. So we talked about cash flow, monitoring your cash flow, building those relationships.
Yep.
We talked about
not being a yes man.
Not being a yes man. Focus on you know, what your core stuff is.
Yep.
Marketing, continuous, all the time marketing. And you know, one more thing I want to say about that is that goes back to a relationship. Or your not your relationship, your reputation.
Oh yes. Yep.
That, you know, even when you're out grocery shopping and one of your customers sees you, you keep that in mind, you know, that how you act, and like, people are going to see that.
Yep.
And then we talked about, you know, the training the people, setting the culture,
you
know, and all that kind of stuff. Those are really big things, you know, that if you want to get your business going and beat the statistics, is try and get as much of that right as possible at the beginning. You're not going to get it all right. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
But try and get as much of that right as you can. So
yeah, for sure. Hopefully you guys got something out of this, and honestly, throw in the comments if there's anything else that within your process that you've learned, that you maybe thought you could have, if it had been nice for you to know in the beginning. Throw them in the comments. I'd be curious to know what different things that we didn't mention here that you think would be a good thing for another business owner to that they're getting involved before they start. But yeah, other than that, appreciate you guys for watching. Like, as always, like, subscribe, and click the notification bell. And until next time, let's grow together.
It's time to step up, yeah. It's grind time, no more letting up. No, running faster, further, no more running up. Yeah, giving my all, no more giving up. Listen to me, step, it's time to step it up.